that as we proceed. When gold crosses 4,000, I don't understand why that's not like front page news. Like, because to me, that maybe, I mean, you're better at this than I am, but that means that the cumulative effect of everything we're discussing has been to destroy the US dollar.
When you read what even all Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, the IMF, the World Bank, the Exim Bank, it's not even debated. They've decided in the last really 3-4 years that they're going to deal with monetary debt worldwide, both corporate, governmental, individual, with inflation. And Trump recognizes that and has said, fine, we'll have inflation with expansion and expansion of goods. And all the economists agree that that will have some pain, but overall will be something that could actually be successful. If you have the leftist UN, WEF, Great Reset, post-industrial carbon tax plan, you will have stagflation, which is high inflation, but a ongoing recession, depression, which is the perfect storm of hell on earth. And that is what the UN and the globalists directly want, to create a worldwide serf system of more manageable slaves in their official policies, break down the borders with first world and third world, not to rise up the third world economically, but to lower everybody down to a level. Then the globalists say they'll have small, compact city-states and rural city-states like the Hunger Games, where they have medicine, technology, and everything, and then just basically fly above us, and we're going to be put into a agrarian situation with a much reduced world population. So that's the official Great Reset, post-industrial, Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 policy. And there's nothing more frustrating than reading all their policy books and the legislation and the treaties, and then seeing it carried out, which is the purposeful planned depopulation of the earth through slow starvation and resources being restricted, and the conflict that comes with when resources are constricted. And then I see Trump massively increasing energy production and then going to Saudi Arabia and having them increase energy production, which hurts U.S. oil production, but helps the world in general lower inflation and get real money in the hands of people. That's the biggest benefit. And then no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, all the things he's doing, 10 trillion committed in investment, several trillion already here. All of that is exactly what you do if you want to help the people and build a middle class and a sustainable, thriving country and world, building back our morale and nationalism and the family and God. Trump gets an A+ on all of that, but he needs to get more on message and not say, oh, the left are idiots, they don't know how to manage things. No, the globalists admit that they want a post-industrial world. That's John Kerry said last year, we got to cut off half the farming or people will starve. That's what causes starvation, obviously. And they want to cut the resources off so they can manage and control people. That's why in the Netherlands and in Ireland and in Sri Lanka, all over, they're cutting off massive amounts of the farming, taking some of the best farming land ever and saying, sorry, your cows pass gas, it's bad for the earth. That is deliberate sabotage of the world economy to cause a collapse. Then the banksters can loan us more money, bring in a new cashless society, social credit score. That is the end game plan. And they talk about carbon lockdowns for the earth, where you'll be told when you can leave your house. During carbon lockdowns, you'll be told when you can leave your 15-minute city. This is a very totalitarian hellscape, dystopia, sci-fi vision they have. And Trump is 95%, I would say, in opposition to it, even with his limited understanding. By limited, I mean he's smart about the economy, but doesn't understand it's deliberate. And he goes, oh, they're really dumb. These are the worst ideas I ever heard. Is that why they're all unified, decades getting them in place? Is that why the big banks and corporations are exempt? No, it's feudalism. We don't have resources. We don't have rights. They all have the rights. That is the purest form of economic control. It's the oldest form of government. It's been the most common form of government in world history. And the UN and the globalists say we're bringing back feudalism. Neo-feudalistic capitalism is what they call it. But really, it's just slavery. And that's what we're opposing. And that's what the relaunch of the West is about. That's what Elon Musk understands. And that's why this is a do-or-die existential threat to everybody. People should just get on board and get hardcore or be absolute feudal slaves if you're lucky.
How do you get on board?
You understand and you research the Great Reset, and you research Larry Fink, now the head of the World Economic Forum. You realize 3 years ago, the UN made the World Economic Forum co-equal to its governing body and its councils. And you understand, if you actually read their writings, the future isn't human. People are bad. Families are bad. We're going to have these AI gods that take over. I mean, it is just the wildest thing that Lex Luthor in a comic book couldn't come up with. This is beyond supervillain stuff. This is real super demon stuff. and you have to identify the attack you're under and that it's deliberate, then you have to mobilize and get good legislators and governors and others elected. Populists are getting elected all over the world. People are really waking up to this. And we have now these attorney generals winning court cases in Texas and other places where BlackRock tried to come in and say, we're not going to have any investment in your state if you don't get rid of fossil fuels. And then Texas sued Kim Paxton and said, this is racketeering. This is illegal. They won the court cases. It is. Because Larry Fink says this is about control. And we're going to control you. And they control us by managing our money. Well, now a bunch of states are pulling their pension funds from BlackRock. And now Larry Fink is singing a different tune, at least publicly, and they've pulled some of their DEI and some of the ESG stuff, which is the corporate governance. When you wonder why, whether you're in Australia, Germany, the U.S., or Canada, it's the same policies, the same programs, the same drag queen story times, the same take a knee during the national anthem. All of this comes out of them literally trying to demoralize us, because if we have a free, open society, people around the world are going to want that, and you can't have a control group where there's some free, prosperous Western nations, everybody else slaves under BlackRock and the globalists. That's why you've got to take down the West so there's nowhere to run.
I think that's exactly right. You can't have different systems, radically different systems in a globalized world. Can you?
No, and so exactly. So there's a fight between, do you want the 1984 civilization or do you want the 1776 civilization? 1776 isn't going back, it's back to the future. It was the flower of the Renaissance and the greatest expression of hundreds and hundreds of years of the Great Awakening and of the Enlightenment. And so it's a continuation of that. We have to get back to the future, back to the avant-garde, back to what produces the most freedom, the most wealth. Classical liberalism of Thomas Jefferson. Now, modern liberalism is totalitarian, anti-family, anti-speech, anti-self-defense, anti-private property. Modern liberalism is a totalitarian, death cult, transhumanist, poison to sabotage human civilization. It's a depopulation program. 1776 is the ultimate, most successful push of humans to produce the very best atmosphere of liberty and freedom and competition and empowerment. The problem is, in the cycle, as you know, hard times make strong men make good times make weak men make bad times. The problem is that, are we good enough? It was Benjamin Franklin, right after they finally, years later, after the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, finally got the Bill of Rights done, and he was walking out, and the newspaper reporter said, Mr. Franklin, do we now finally have our nation? And he said, yes, you have your republic if you can keep it. And he said, and so did Jefferson, he said, you got to have informed, involved, educated people. And Jefferson wrote about this constantly. He said, not just informed about math or Latin, but you got to have people that are farmers. You got to have, people that actually know how to skin a buck and run a trot line. He said, if you ever get people where they're not physically out there able to run and control their whole lives, the so-called education doesn't matter because they're just educated idiots. So you've got to have that multifacetedness where people have to really, and people think of that as work. No, it's empowering to really try to be what Thomas Jefferson talked about. And then when you go through what Jefferson went through, some of us have gone through similar things now, not to that extent, but close. Then you read Jefferson, you realize we're back in that same time of change and revolution again. It's our revolution. We have the ball. We're selling the best system. We have the proven track record. We're the good guys. And we've got to stand up and make the choices clear, plant our flag and say, this is the hill to die on, and we will win.
The way to derail that kind of response, that kind of consciousness, is by creating like total chaos in your country. And the second that happens, the second it's dangerous to drive on I-95 or I-5, then people can't think clearly at all. And they just become purely reactive.
Or have COVID lockdowns. And put masks on little kids.
Exactly. And I think you've described the Trump record right. Like, moving in the right direction, flaws, but moving in the right direction. The way to derail all of that is not the midterm elections. It's some kind of civil strife. Do you think that's coming?
Well, Russia was right to lead off with. I didn't know we were going to lead off with, but I think that was the most important thing. We didn't really talk much before this. And the next place I wanted to go was the Pedesta Plan.